Welcome, everyone. We have wonderfully nothing Anna Brown. Anna, how are you doing?
Good. Hello, everyone. Welcome, my friends.
The first question I'm going to ask you is, can you tell me a brief history? We were talking earlier, and we have very similar stories of being a teacher and now a speaker. Can you tell us a brief history of that, Anna?
Yes. So I used to teach empowerment, self-help, self-love. And there was this recognition that um, intuitively, I was always going to be seeking empowerment. I was always going to, Emerson, can we stop for 1 second? Can we pause? With the pregnancy hormones, sometimes it's like, it's really, yeah.
I'm just going to repeat the question. So, Anna, we have very similar stories. And one of the stories is that you were a teacher before, and now that you're a speaker. Can you just give me a brief history of that?
Yes. So I used to feel super insecure, super unworthy, super separate, which compelled me to find empowerment teachers and gurus and self-help and spirituality. And in that, I thought I was reaching something. I thought I was going to reach heaven, paradise, this really fancy, cool word called enlightenment. And I thought it would just add something to myself, right? I was a sinner. I wasn't good enough yet. There was a fractalization off from source or God that I needed to make my way back to. And so all of these stories and belief systems that were handed down to me, which were never original, so to speak, compelled this to seek, to look for something outside of myself. And so even though these teachings are not wrong or right, they're just what they are, there was something that always felt off with it. So even though there may be a bump in confidence, a changing in belief system, more money coming in, or a better outlook or perspective on life, something still felt missing. There was still something that was off. It just felt like, okay, well, what's next? Now what's the next meditation? What's the next visualization? What's the next cool groovy mantra crystal I can get my hands on today? So something just felt off. And so through the spontaneity of life, because there is no free will and choice, there was seeing through teachers, seeing through the gurus, all of the pedestals that I had put these beings on just all of a sudden crumbled. And I saw through all of the arrogance of it all. And then there's this period of walking through the desert, feeling like Jesus, being tempted by my own belief systems and all of these things. But naturally, all of the teachings, all of the meditations, all of the wanting to know what this is, just seemed to just slide off. I wouldn't say it was like an instantaneous and it was game over. It was like pieces and chunks of the armor of identity just started to fall away. Now, of course, I was teaching meditation. I was teaching self-love and self-empowerment. So the beings who were apparently following the message, who really resonated with it, they saw the twist, or they saw the apparent shift of, wow, there's no longer any direction given. There's no longer, oh, we need to do this today, or intention settings. They started to see that falling away. And so some beings stayed and resonated, some beings gave me the finger, but it was all this natural kind of organic, what seems to look like a process. No one's doing it. But there definitely used to be an agenda here, an intention and a directive. And that just seemingly just doesn't come up anymore. Because life doesn't need a direction. It doesn't need a purpose, and it doesn't need a point, because the message of non-duality, which is not personal, is saying this is already it. And the dream experience that you need to integrate an ego, or that you need to heal your chakras, or you need to reach your higher self, are just mere stories, entertainment. They're not wrong and they're not right, but they're just belief systems. And what we're speaking about here today is not a belief, because beliefs really are lies. The word lies in the middle. So the personal identity, which is a dream illusion, lives through a belief. When that seems to fade or dissolve, there's only being, life. So beliefs aren't needed here. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I used to teach people how to find their purpose.
Mm.
What's the purpose of life, Anna?
There isn't one. There isn't one. But if there is a sense of separation or a personal observer, it's going to put purpose and meaning and point onto everything. And that becomes the sticky experience of the person, because everything's important now. And I need a purpose to breathe. Right. No need.
When I was teaching, I also taught about unconditional love.
Mm.
What is unconditional love?
This is unconditional love arising. COVID, dog crap, gratitude, babies being born, Skittles, sunshine, flowers, everything is unconditional love manifested.
And there used to be kind of like a struggle of what good and bad was. What is morality?
Good question. It depends on who you ask. Morality is for the person. It's a code of ethics. It's something it needs to live by. It's a rule book. It's a standard. It's a position. This is positionless. And this isn't saying that you become immoral or just callous and discompassionate and nihilistic. It's just there's no one living by some kind of code anymore. There's no need for a code. Everything's organic and spontaneous. No need for morality.
And this is a question that always comes up, so if there's no code, there's no morality, then would everybody will just be serial killers?
Yeah, that would assume that already beings have a choice to just go off the rocker, so to speak. That's what the mind would think. Well, then I guess I can just go do whatever I want. That still assumes that you can just do that you have choice, that you are the chooser and the doer, which is the dream experience of I am. Yeah.
Another thing that always comes up is what is time and space? In the absence of no one, is there time and space?
Time and space is an appearance. It arises. So time appears here. Obviously, Emerson and I wouldn't even be talking. You see, it's an appearance, but for the person, it's very concrete. It's very real. And that's why the person lives in past, trying to get into the present, and it's always projecting the future. You see, because that's its timeline. It's got a birth certificate and a tombstone. And what happens in between there is everything. So time appears, but it's not real. It just seems to be.
If Anna was given an option to be a billionaire or to be this, what would it choose?
Well, there wouldn't be a choice. I can't say what would happen. You know what I mean? There is no choice to say, okay, I'll be a billionaire or I'll just stay and do this. There's no one choosing this. This is all spontaneously arising, but no choice.
Yes, someone actually asked me that question. It's kind of funny.
Love it.
Nothing is happening. Can you elaborate, please?
It just seems to be. So it's, how do you explain that? How do you explain nothing? Because the person's going to think nothing's like a black, dark hole, abyss of grossness or something. It's just, it's unknowable. It seems to be. And the closest pointing I use is the atom in physics, because at its core, it's just empty wavelengths, empty space appearing as a solid particle. Yeah. And so you can't define nothing. This all seems to be appearing, like kind of like a dream experience at night, right? But when it seems to wake up, oh my God, it wasn't really real. There could have been the sensations, the sweating, the movement, and all of that comes with a dream. But it seemed, my God, it wasn't actually real. It's obvious that it has a real unrealness to it. It's hard to explain. But obviously, this is just apparent. It's an appearance. So it seems like it's real, like an optical illusion.
It's another popular question. Is God real?
Only for the person, because a God's an entity. Now, this will use the word God sometimes, or the beloved, but it's speaking about everything. It's speaking about the phone, the hands, everything, pain, pleasure, all of that is God. But when the person hears God, they're typically thinking of an entity outside of oneself who's kind of puppeteering everyone and manipulating and has a plan. God, that sounds awful. But this is God, you could say. Your face is that, your eyes are that, the breath is that. It's just, it's unknowable. So even calling it God is still not right or wrong. It's just a label.
So if there's no one, does it mean that Jesus, Buddha, Ramana, and Nisargadatta are all fictional characters?
I don't know if I would say fictional, but there's not a separate doer called, Nisargadatta or Muhammad or Jesus or Krishna or any of these things. They are appearances, just like Emerson and Anna are appearances. It's a monologue right now. This is a monologue appearing as a two-ness. So when we revere Jesus, we put them on pedestals thinking it was a person who did all of those things. And I got to be like that. And what we're saying is there is no other. Everything is already that. You could say we're all Jesus, we're all Muhammad. Yeah.
So this is nothing speaking to nothing. Can you explain?
Sure. Yeah, it's a mystery speaking to itself, which on this level, it'll speak through words and concepts and what seems like knowledge and knowing, but it's an energy. There's an energy that inflates the words. And so nothing is another label, of course. It's a mystery. It's completely unknowable. It's an essence, I guess you could say, but even saying nothing's another label, which the mind will take as awful, just nothing's there. No, form is formlessness simultaneously. So obviously it appears as something, but this something can't be grasped, coveted, or owned. That's what the person tries to do, because it truly feels only like an object. And so it tries to own objects and identify with objects. Yeah.
Beautiful. What is liberation?
This is already liberation. Everything is liberated already, including pain, pleasure, seeking, non-seeking. Everything is already liberated. Now, through the lens of self-consciousness or the person, liberation is a fantasy, and it looks like this. It walks like this, and it talks like this. And until that appears, I am miserable and I hate life. So liberation is a goal for the person. This message is saying there is only liberation, and the one who's trying to find it never will, because it's just a dream bubble. It's just a thought bubble, so to speak. It's a story.
And this is also a popular question. So how do you attain this apparent liberation?
No one has ever attained it. You can't attain it because it's already naturally what is. See, the person will look for cues like, well, okay, my body's tired today. I can't be enlightened. This can't be liberation. You know, for example, Emerson and I were talking at the beginning and I was breathless from being pregnant. So we had to stop for a moment. It's all just spontaneously arising. The body functions. There's sweating. There's tiredness. There's lots of energy. That's all it. That's all unconditional love or liberation appearing as that. But when you're taught in religion or a spiritual circle that enlightenment looks like this and it has to feel like bliss all the time, you're going to look for an emotion. And you're not just an emotion. You're not just a thought, and you're not just some certain state. We're talking about a statelessness, but all states can appear in it.
So why does everyone want enlightenment? Well, not everyone, but why is it such an attainment?
Because in the dream, one is starving, whether it's starving for fame, fortune, a family, a better face, the new lover. Seeking can appear in many ways, but what we're speaking about, of course, is the seeking for enlightenment. It's really consumerism. It's materialism. That's all it is. And that's what the person lives in. I need more. Consume, consume, consume. And that's why it loves the spiritual buffet, right? And it can feel good for a little bit, but back to the buffet we go. It's never, ever, ever full. But what I speak to and from, which is not a position, is constantly full and yet empty simultaneously.
What is suffering?
Suffering can appear in what we call organic or the enlightened reality, which is just natural. For the person, though, it needs to alleviate suffering, because that's what enlightenment is. Heaven doesn't have pain. Heaven doesn't have any form of suffering in it. And what we're saying here is suffering can appear, no one's suffering. Pain can appear, but it's appearing for no one. That's hard to explain and understand, obviously, through a conceptual mind. This whole message is completely intuitive, but we're sold that. You know, let's make this world no suffering. No one will be in pain. We're all going to wear white and sing kumbaya. And it's just a fantasy. This message here is very grounded in a sense and earthy in a sense, saying anything and everything is that, including sadness or an apparent disease that's arising. But the me thinks that there shouldn't be pain. And if there's pain, I must not be there yet. Yeah, it's just another story.
Of course, the follow-up question from that would be, how do I get rid of suffering? Or somebody would say, how can somebody get rid of suffering?
The same way, how does one wake up if no one is asleep? You don't. Yeah, you could say the intense anguish or what seems to add on to just the baseline neutral apparent pain or suffering would be the story wrapped around it. This shouldn't be here. I can change this through my self-help and my meditations. And if I can't, well, damn it, my chakras must be out of whack, you see? So the story tends to inflate suffering. It seems to.
When I was spiritually seeking, I kind of like gathered a lot of concepts like karma, Dharma. Let's try to dissolve some of this. What is karma?
A myth. Karma and sin is a myth. And we hear that a lot, for in Catholicism, it was sin, right? But it's really just, it's for the person. I've done something wrong in a past life, or I've done something wrong in this life, and now I have debt to owe. You don't owe anything. No one's asking you to change. No one's asking you to blink. No one's asking you to do anything. Only teachings are asking you to do something. So karma is just another story. It's really religion in a sense, and spirituality, which this message is not. And Dharma is what your purpose. There is no purpose to life. I mean, naturally, the body and the character is going to do what it's meant to do, so to speak, like a songbird sings at dawn or a squirrel collects nuts. There's a naturalness to the functioning of the body. The person needs a purpose for its specialness and its validation and its own sense of security. Yeah.
Let's go some more of that route. What is a path? Is there a path?
A path seems to appear. So I'm not going to deny that there doesn't seem to be steps, or that there doesn't seem to be an evolution. Like my tummy here is, woo, it seems to be evolving, inflating, all of these things. But it just seems to be. Now, the person truly thinks they're the creator of the reality. I'm creating this path. I'm creating this evolution, and I am becoming this higher self, or whatever it is. There's no goal to this. There is no goals to this. However, of course, let's say a goal can appear like, there's this inspiration to exercise, but it's not because excuse me, I am so sorry. I'm back. I'm so sorry. It's not because
it's just what's happening.
Popped out, came back in. It's not because someone
did Anna just disappear?
Okay, right. She spit out, she's back. Yeah. Sorry about that. So what was the question?
We're talking about karma, dharma, the path.
Yeah. A path seems to appear. It's not going linearly though. It's a rising and a falling, kind of like an inhale and an exhale. You know what I mean? It's not actually going somewhere. There is no path to this. There is only this. You see, the person puts happiness as a goal, weight loss as a goal. And until I get there, I can't be happy or enjoy. What we're speaking about is an uncaused joy, an uncaused peace, an uncaused just freedom. It's not because you caused it, because you gained something. The person just truly lives in this linear time of becoming and cause and effect. It's not real. It's an optical illusion.
What is reincarnation?
A beautiful story. It's for the person, and it's a way to establish hierarchy and in groups and out groups, like I'm an old soul and you're not. That's why I'm wiser than you. And that's why, your vibration's low. And so we create all these gaps and stories, but there is no reincarnation. It's a way for the person to project themselves into the future. Like, well, I'll come back again. Or, I'm never coming back again. They're just mere stories. No one's here already. No one's coming back. Mm-hmm.
To feel higher than everyone, before I used to tell them that I think this is my last reincarnation. I think I've reached
it's the last one, I swear. Yeah,
it's the last one. I think I've gone through so much suffering, and here I am. Yeah. This is the last one. Yeah. What a load of crap that was. Oh God. I should write down the use I used to say when I was a teacher.
It would be funny. It would be a fun read. It would. It would be fun.
But I think your vibration is a bit lower than mine right now, Anna. So
yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think so. It's because I'm pregnant. It's because I'm pregnant. My vibration's low because that's sinful. Yeah.
The sacral chakra is pulling your it's concentrated there. So all of your chakras are not quite aligned yet.
I know. I know.
What are chakras?
Oh my God. Another hamster wheel. Each one's a hamster wheel for you to have fun and spin in. They're not real. They're stories. They originate in the East, but it's amazing. I mean, my God, in the story of Anna, I did this too. Chakras. Whoa, there's over 180. What? How many? I mean, my God, there's an endless amount depending on who you ask, and you got to keep them all aligned. It's a story. You didn't come into this world going, wow, I've got chakras I got to clear. I'm already 2. They're probably gunky. No, you read it somewhere. So what we're calling awakening is the recognition by no one that everything you think you know is a hand-me-down.
I used to spend maybe about 3 to 4 hours aligning my chakras every day, meditating, doing yoga, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, man.
did you do
Lots of
that too?
money went into it, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
I know. And it's
Uh,
always, what's the next retreat? What
mm,
as a teacher, you always wanted to give something fresh. So you're kind of like always want to be a step ahead. So I'll be like,
mhm,
well, I'm going to be teaching about mantras right now. What are mantras?
mm. Mantras are for the mind. They're not wrong. Neither are prayers. None of those things are wrong. But the one who needs to recite and remember, it's what I call the harder intuition. It doesn't need to recite those things. It already is naturally, simply. But those arise from an intention and an agenda, already feeling separate. So I need to do this prayer or mantra so I can feel more aligned. That all falls away, seemingly. Yeah.
And the other one is, well, the big one is, because I used to teach it and you used to teach it too, is meditation. Let's talk about meditation.
Yeah.
Do you still meditate?
No, no. You can say there used to be intense meditation, but now no one meditates. There's just meditation, maybe you could say. No one's trying to do it, no one's intending it, right? Because Emerson, even in meditation, someone is looking for something there. Yeah,
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
I used to say kind of like when my day is off, I'm like, I should have not skipped my meditation. I should have done the full hour and not the 10 minutes. And
right,
there's
right.
always something to attain. Now it seems like everything is just meditation, but for no
Yeah,
one. No one's
yes,
meditating. Looking at the
yeah,
tree, looking at you, looking at the plant. It's beautiful.
yeah.
Um, is meditation necessary for liberation?
No, nothing is because this isn't school. It's very easy to put enlightenment like a school system, prerequisites. I got to do this before I do that. We're saying here is you don't need anything. You don't need to go through suffering. You don't need to go through what Emerson and the parent Anna went through to do this. No, you don't need anything. That's the whole message is no need. This is an open door always because there is no freaking door. Heaven, what I call heaven, which is simply what is it's not asking you to do anything because there's no rule books. There's no agenda there. It's agendaless. However, unconditional love naturally allows those belief systems that say, I need to heal first. Of course, that's also freedom. Yeah.
So if there's no one here, if there's no Anna, there's no Emerson, how did you
Mm-hmm.
get here?
Yeah. I could tell you it'd be another story. We don't really know how we appeared here today. We don't really know. We could go through, well, this and this and this and this, but that's just things we think we know. We don't really know. So what we're calling awakening, or I'd rather say organic, is the end of the one who knows how I got here. Well, of course, yesterday happened. Now I'm here. I went through this whole process of being a teacher and da 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 da. That's how I rose here, so the story goes. But it is hard to understand and explain no one or no thing. But how does a plant spring through? How does a tree's leaves fall? How does a chicken's egg crack? It's a mystery. It's all spontaneous. There is no doer inside of that. Yeah.
What is the power of now?
I think it's a book. I do know that it's a book, and a lot of beings bring that up and reference it, but there is no now. And that's what we were saying earlier is the person lives in past, trying to get into the present, and then projection into the future. So the now is now a new goal. Am I in the now? Am I present enough? Am I being here fully now? That's the person trying to do that. There is only now, you could say, whether you feel like you're in it or not, because it's not about a feeling. Yeah.
How about the law of attraction? Sorry.
No, you're good. For the person, that's totally real. And in the story of Anna, my God, it was, oh, I got to have the highest vibration because I create my day. And if my day goes bad, well, you know who to blame, right? It's another way to victimize oneself or to grandiose oneself in that sense of inflation of, oh, look at me, this is what I'm doing. Or, oh God, my vibration's so low, I need to heal more. So that's why all of this is crappy. It's a game. It's a game that seems so real when we feel separate. So I'm not going to say that these apparent laws don't arise like gravity, right? Temperature, all of these things of laws seem to arise, but there's no one who is creating their reality as a separate doer. That's what seems to arise in the illusory experience of free will and choice. Yeah, you're not attracting anything because there is no you outside of the whole to attract something to. Yeah.
I used to think that too. I used to
Yeah.
teach that too. That if
Yeah.
you have positive thoughts, will attract positive things. So what are thoughts?
what is dust? What is air? Everything is absolutely empty at its core. It's all nothing. So a thought form, an emotion, a mountain, a volcano, cat here, it's all this mystery appearing as solid something. So thoughts really aren't important, neither are emotions, but for the person, thoughts are highly important, and so are emotions, and they really need to look and feel like this, because that's the cool thing, that's the groovy thing. I've got to feel like this to be a spiritual person or enlightened. Thoughts are nothing, absolutely nothing, but they can arise. So can emotions, just like clouds and weather and flies. It's all just appearing. It's not real though.
Anna, where's the mind?
You could say there isn't one, but when we talk in the story, we do use the word like mind or personal identity, or dream. We'll use the word dream, but there really is no dreamer, and there really is no mind. Because as long as we have a mind, or we have this sense of dream or ego, we're in two-ness, and something needs to be integrated, something needs to be reformed or renunciated. But even what we're calling the mind is freedom appearing as a mind, freedom appearing as a seeker, freedom appearing as what we're calling an ego. There isn't one.
I used to kind of like say that you're operating from the ego. You're not,
Mhm.
not in the now. So if there's no mind, is there no ego?
No, no. Ego is another form, really, I think, for the devil or Satan. It's another way to have an antithesis to life. Like there's this evil ego who's outside of the whole, who's doing all these naughty things like a Loki or something. And it's just another story. There is no shadow figure. There is no Satan, devil, or ego. It's so old school and archaic, but the more we follow teachers and we read books and we use the word ego, we really think there is one. And what we're saying here is, my God, no. Even what we're calling like a shadowiness is the beloved, is totality, is unconditional love appearing as that. But it's amazing within the dream experience. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you think you have an ego, if you think there's entities, if you think there's a devil, it seems to arise that way. And now I need to integrate it or heal it or reform it because it's not good enough. What?
I'm not sure who said this, but the biggest ego trip is getting rid of the ego.
It's all such a riddle and a paradox, man. Oh man, that's why this is why this can't be taught, because like the
I
mind will hear that
know.
and it's just straddling the brain. It's like, but it's like when it's hurt,
Yeah.
it's hurt. It's like, oh my God. Oh my God. Duh.
Yeah.
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 Let's go back into that apparent kind of like story
Yeah.
again, of seeking, teaching, and then stumbling. So in my story, as I said earlier, I became a teacher and I stumbled, and I was desperate to get enlightened, kind of like
Mm.
you know what I'm saying? I was desperate. I'm like, well, the only way that I can save this character is to be enlightened. So I read so many books, about consciousness, awareness, non-duality, and I think I have like about so many books, and I encountered Tony Parsons and Jim Newman. Can you share your story?
Yes. And so in the story of Anna, there was glimpses. So I can't say that there wasn't glimpses. They seem to arise. The glimpse is not for the person. And it seems like it is, but it's not. So at a young age, there were these little peekaboos, if you will, peekaboo. And then their seeking would come back in. Okay. But through that seeking, there was still that really intense, no doubt intuition that was just always like, sticky. This is too much like school. Why are we doing these meditations? This is not needed. There's always like a voice of, this is not needed. This is all nonsense and bullshit. But the conditioning of the person said, no, 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 we're insecure. Let's follow them. Look at their followers. Look at their pretty hat they're wearing and, their bees and their crystals. We should follow them. And so, of course, there was this kneeling down to others, this authority, because we're taught we need an authority. There really isn't one. And so I dabbled in all of these things, New Age, ascension, new earth, self-help, even just empowerment, just your standard empowerment type stuff. But there was always something missing, of course. But in the dream, in the story of Anna, there was a seeing through a new age teacher, which I revered, really put on a pedestal. And just all of the true colors were coming through, so to speak. Of course, that's the great mystery appearing as that teacher. So there's no shame, No guilt, no doubt, nothing wrong with that. But it was just seen through as this wasn't needed. It was just mere stories, just mere mirages. And in this exile period of Anna feeling like Jesus, Tony Parsons and Jim Newman arose spontaneously, wasn't looking for anything. They're just boop, just, you know, they just popped up. And it was just, I literally just heard the words, there's no you, there's no free will and choice. And it's absolutely hopeless to look for this. It's futile. And something within was just, oh my, it was just music to the earless ears. Just, I can't explain it. But after that, just chunks of things just started falling away. It wasn't an instantaneous, but armor just started falling off. Practices and meditation, stepping away from the community, it was very natural. All of it just started to fall away. But of course, there was what you would call the beliefs kind of coming in and, are you sure? Da, 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 da. But even that started to fade away naturally. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have some videos that I've taken down. I've asked people to take down because that was the teacher Emerson. Have you done the same?
Yes. Well, only once, I would say, just to reformat that no longer is what I stand by or that I share or anything like that, because I was getting some confused beings popping up going, what's this about? Oh, well, you know, it's just, sorry, this is what it is now, so to speak. But yeah, that has popped up, you know, but you know, if someone doesn't want to take it down either, it's okay. You know what I mean? Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
the glimpse?
It's hard to describe because there's no person in the glimpse. This is the glimpse. So you could say this is awakening, this is heaven, this is enlightenment. So it's just the dropping away. Like when the glimpse arose, for no one, it was indescribable. There was no longer an identity. There was no longer a person looking through the eyes peering. It's very hard to explain because all concepts, all definitions, time, it all just kind of sloshes off. And there's just this. It's kind of like when that ticking hand just stops, but there's no need for translation. Yeah.
When I was a spiritual teacher, I used to dress like one. I used to put on a mala bead all the time, drink kombucha tea, and you know, just act like spiritually superior than everyone. Have there any been apparent changes with Anna?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I no longer buy crystals thinking that they're gonna, you know, save me or anything like that, or buying into, yeah. I mean, I still like kombucha tea. I will say that is yummy, but it's no longer because I think
I do
that's
too. I
what,
do too.
yeah,
I do
it's still
too. Yeah,
delicious.
yeah,
It's still
yeah.
delicious. But yeah, there's no longer the sound bowl, or I need to listen to just this music and all of these things. Those course sound bowl still arises here, and listening to nature sound still arises here, but it's not as a need. You know, listening to Led Zeppelin arises here, or Rush, or the Beatles, or Metallica. So it's all equal. But for the person, it only needs to be the Zen flute always, you know? Yeah.
I used to do that. I'm a DJ, right? So for quite a
Yeah.
while, you know, I dropped all of my dance music, and
Mhm.
then I'm like, maybe I need to purify, you know, all my intake, and then only listen to vegan music.
Yes, like it's like, yeah, diet music, it's light, yeah, it's like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yes, talk about a bore, right? Yeah.
And I just basically fuck this, you know, and I went back to
Yeah,
DJing, you know, saying it's like
yeah.
there was a point that I was like, should I just meditate or go DJing? I'm like, I have fun
Mhm.
more DJing, so I'll go DJing.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah, totally,
awesome.
totally. Next question is, what is consciousness?
Consciousness is a knower. It's about knowing. And it's such a powerful spiritual buzzword, right? I'm consciousness. I'm awareness. What does that mean though? It's just another label you're hiding behind. It's like God or soul. I'm just God. You know, if you truly look it up in the dictionary, it's right there. It's to know something. And so I see consciousness like the hues of a rainbow. And so the rainbow's not really in the sky, it's an effect. It's an effect. It's not actually there, of a white light hitting the prism. And so you could say Emerson and Anna are the appearance of the rainbow, right? It seems to appear. However, what we're speaking about with non-duality is that white light that seems to create this cast of the appearances of knowledge, of beliefs, of becoming, of these two characters that are here interacting. But the white light's unknowable. But the rainbow is always trying to reach the white light through its limitations of the yellow or the green or the blue. It's completely unattainable. Why is it unattainable? Because the rainbow is already an illusion. It's already in effect. Yeah.
What is awareness?
I see it as the same as consciousness. I see it as the same as consciousness. So something that knows, it's peering. And I'm not going to say that there's not something that's looking. It's just, it's not personal. There's obviously a seeing. I can see Emerson in the phone. It's just, there's not this gravity to it. It's really hard to explain. There's not this personal position center point. When there's a person, that's the consciousness. And consciousness is the veil. It's Maya. It's perception. And perception is seemingly tainted by past experiences. What you think you know, you've learned, the conditioning of the character. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Let's take you to that story again. This happens in a story.
Mm-hmm.
In this apparent story, it was just sitting on a chair, um, looking, but no one's seeing a dust, and seeing a dust that it's in infinity. And it was just like, wow, there's no one here. Wow, this is it. Can you share? Can you share a little bit of that, Anna?
It is this. There's no
I
world
know
outside.
it's just a story.
Yeah. Of course. But this really is it. And when the mind hears it, it just takes it as a belief. But we truly think there's a world outside of us, and that there's time, and that there's this projection of others through. It's just through the lens of that separation, or what we're calling mind. But really, this is totality right here. This is the full enchilada. You will. This is it. And that's never going to set well for a mind who's polarized. The brain can only operate in those two hemispheres, you see. But this is it. And that's why it's enough. That's why there's no need when there's no person, because this is seen as, again, all of it, total, perfect. Doesn't mean it won't apparently change or morph or bend, but this is total. That can't be described. And that's why most beings can't describe this. They'll say, I don't even know how to put this into words because it doesn't make sense. How is a dust particle totality? But this is equivalent. This reflection here is equivalent as a rock on the ground. Or if you looked at a tulip, there's absolutely no difference, because the truth is everywhere. It's everything.
I usually say that there's a clarity that it's almost impossible to describe in words. It's almost like muddying the water, because words are very dualistic. So in your speaking about this, was there a deepening of explaining this or expressing this?
Oh, totally. It would just be nonsense and arrogance to say that there's not an apparent deepening. There totally is an apparent deepening, but I like to see it. It's like the flowers of a petal. The flower's there. The center point of the flower's there, and it's just like the pulling back and the opening. It's just the open. It was always there. It was always what is. It's just seems to be opening. It's not. That's what I mean by it's not going anywhere. And it's not that you're adding on new knowledge. It's just like this opening, like when you open the curtains and the sunlight seems to come in. It was there. It just seems to be an opening, of course.
Of course, in the apparent story, there seems to be a deepening,
Yeah.
it's beautiful though.
Yeah.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. Did you find yourself finding contradictions? What
Yes,
you're
of
saying?
course.
Okay, okay, yeah.
I always feel like they're always, yeah, in a sense, will be damned if you do, damned if you don't, kind of a situation. So what the hell, you know what I mean? Because yeah, there's going to see these little pieces of like, oh wow, like I see language is kind of simplified there, or that word's been out of the vocabulary for a while. You just start to see this, but in a sense too, there's not like this deep connection of linearity. So when you look at those videos, it almost seems like a dream. It's almost like looking at, wow, this is interesting. You know what I mean? It's fresh, but there's no judgment. There's absolutely no judgment. Yeah.
In speaking about this, I can see that there's this passion that's coming up from you. And can you tell me about that passion that's speaking about this? If there's no intention, if there's no agenda, where's this passion?
That's a good question. And my fiance will ask me these things too, and I'll say, you know what, I'm astonished too, just the things that come out or how it seems to appear, because I actually have no idea. When I sit down with you, or a video seems to appear, or I'm in a session, I don't know what's about to happen or go down at all. It's free flow, it's improv, it's off the cuff, so to speak. It can seem too like the cardinal that sings at dawn is super passionate about what it's singing about. It's innate. It's just like part of the character, you know what I mean? Just like when you touch a rose bush, you may get pricked, you know what I mean? but it doesn't mean there's something wrong with the rose or that it has an intention to prick you, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where this is coming from too. I seem to spend more time in non-duality now, speaking about this, making videos, than my full-time job. So it's just kind of funny. It's just a love that's pouring out,
Totally. It's just a
it's
joy. Yeah.
do you feel a kind of responsibility to your ex-students to communicate about this now?
No responsibility at all, and that's martyrdom. And that's what I used to feel like it was my responsibility, because I was hearing these stories of, well, like, oh, well, we're here to anchor the light. And, this is your mission and this is your job and your duty. And we even we take that responsibility, not just to, let's say, students, but to our families and our friends and our brothers and sisters, so to speak, within the story. And then we think there's just this codependency, which obviously it's not fun. It's not, because that means you need to be okay for me to be okay. And I should be speaking in a certain way so you can feel okay. And I see that a lot with sometimes beings who show up to the message. They want this to speak in a certain way because they want to be struck with a certain feeling, or their need needs to be stroked, so to speak. But there is no responsibility. Responsibility implies another. And then some beings will go into, well, what about my children? Well, what about the world and all these things? There's an innate functioning. Just like, mother bears take care of their babies naturally. They don't have to have this purpose and intention of importance. It's just very biological and natural. So the body will naturally do that. So we're not denying compassion or that you don't lend a helping hand, but there's no longer this martyrdom of, I could have done something. Is it my fault? No, all of that falls away, but there can totally be sadness for the loss of that character. Why not? Yeah.
That's what's great about speaking about this, is because it's for no one. And the teaching, I didn't even know that it was a codependent relationship. When there's a teacher and there's a student, it's a codependent. It's kind of like it's either I give my power to you,
right,
or I take away your power. It's just two ways. And it could be cyclical too. I'll give you my power, so I'll take my power back, but it just becomes this wheel.
It's like playing catch, right?
It is
throwing the ball back and forth.
Yeah.
Fun game, kind of.
So what would you say to the people who were listening to you as an ascension or meditation or a chakra teacher now?
This is it. It's hopeless. There's no need to do those things. But if that's arising, there's no judger here. There's no one here saying that that's wrong. You know what I mean? Because it's stemming just from an idea that I need to do more. What we're talking about is an innate worthiness, which can't be believed. The person's always going to try to change their beliefs to feel worthy enough. It's not going to work. It's never going to work. Even if you feel more confident, there is still going to be something missing. What we're speaking about is an untouched worthiness, untouched confidence. It doesn't need you to move. It doesn't need you to do anything. You don't even need to watch another YouTube video, for God's sakes. You don't even need this. You don't need anything. And that's so hard to hear, because in our world, you go down the road, there's a billboard, you go to YouTube, someone's telling you something. They're trying to sell you something. There's nothing on sale here. You are already fucking full. You are the luminosity. You are this grace, if you want to call it that. You are heaven in disguise. There's no getting closer to this. I mean, that's the good news, but it's awful. It's also awful news for the one who's desperately seeking. This is it. This is absolutely it. You're just never going to know this mentally. It's only intuitive. You are already home. Everywhere is home already.
As beautifully said. When I started kind of like speaking about this, people would say that you're Emerson, you're a Personian now.
What? A Personian?
A Personian, yeah, Personian. Although I think that I speak, differently from Tony. I talked to Tony. And,
Parsonian. I was trying to figure out what you meant by that. Okay, I get you now. Okay, I'm with it.
And that's a term that's coming out. And my explanation to this is, I said, well, it's very simple. And the words are very limited sometimes that you use, because you don't want to use a whole bunch of words. What is your take on that one? Because people will probably call you something like that soon.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's been beings who reference that, like, this sounds similar to Tony or what have you. Sure. Why not? There's always going to be similarities, but you can see that there's also originality within the similarities. There's a difference with the energies, so to speak, because some beings will say, Anna, you're nothing like Tony or Jim. I can't listen to them because they're heartless. And so I laugh to that too, because there's beings who see a difference, and there's some beings who are like, yeah, I see the the simplicity here. But let's just say this could be a flute, maybe that's a clarinet, and Tony's a trumpet, but there's only one breath flowing through all of these instruments. And so maybe someone wants to listen to Tony. There is really no Tony, you see, but of course his character is going to be built like an instrument. And so how he speaks and talks, it's going to have a certain flavor and a certain tune to it. And so when Anna speaks, there's going to be a certain flavor and a certain tune that really just jingles some bells. And some beings, it really doesn't. It doesn't really matter because there's only this one breath that's moving through all of us, so to speak. Of course, that's a story, but yeah.
Or I could say Newmanian, Jim Newman. I love
Newmanian.
Jim. You know what's really,
that.
it's, people, this is just a story as well, and it's just what's happening, but I host the retreats, and I've seen how beautiful and heartwarming it is, and people cry, and so when people think that Tony and Jim are heartless, it's completely kind of like, I'm like, no, it's actually unconditional love at its full expression. I've seen, it's, I just can't say, they're awesome.
There's a neutrality that, it's just, there's a neutrality there, which, when you live in a polarized state of swinging from high to lows, neutrality can be very threatening, of course. Yeah.
That's right. Well, I did too. When I was seeking, when I first encountered that, I was like, oh, this is really threatening. This is really scary, but I can't seem to stop listening to it. Did you do the same?
Oh, totally. And of course there was just laughter and just, oh my God, yes. Because there's just such a radical freshness in the orneriness that seems to arise from the message. It's just so beautiful.
It is quite fascinating of how, this message is so radical. What might seem really cruel actually is very kind. When I hear that, when it's being hammered that there's no one here, there's nothing happening, and the me just keeps on kind of like saying, what do you mean? Well, how do I do that? And then it will be kind of like a slap saying, well, there's no one.
Because true compassion sometimes is going to the complete root of that intense suffering, which is I'm in control. I'm here. I have free will and choice. And so, those messages seem to just cut right there at the root. What are you talking about? Where do you think you're going? What do you mean you need to clean these things up? Ooh. Yeah. And so it can seem, because it's going against the grain of everything we were taught, of what's real, of what's important. Yeah.
And in a way, it's a lot easier to say, go meditate, eat vegan food.
Isn't it?
Right? Because the me wants to be kind of like reinforced. It's reinforcing the me, kind of like, well, here I am meditating, eating vegan food. I was about to say vegan food, playing the flute.
Yeah, go Krishna here.
And not to offend anyone,
no.
anyone, right? It's not to it. There's no one anyway to offend. There's this big criticism about this really radical, rare messaging that is saying that it's a denial, that it's a dissociation, that it's a bypassing. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's. This is not about detachment. Self-inquiry, which I used to practice, for me, that was detachment, because there was someone hovering above the body and just kind of pulling back. So this message is not about pulling back or about attaching. It's a naturalness. So there's no one trying to get out of the body. There's no one trying to fully be in it. It's just this naturalness. So you can't bypass anything. That's another belief in spiritual teaching. I can bypass this. That would assume you can move around and do all of these things. There is no you who's doing anything already. Whatever is arising, including a stutter, spitting on someone's face by accident, is utter perfection. It's the beloved appearing as that. But when we have these ideas of holiness, piety, we think like stuttering can appear, or falling on one's face doesn't appear in the organic reality. It totally does. It totally does. This message is so ordinary, so simple, but it's obviously extraordinary when there is no convoluted, condensed person seeming to appear. Yeah, because everything is refreshed. Yeah.
I always tell this story because I'm in a suburb city now, right? So I used to be in a paradise, and this paradise had, whales and bears and eagles, like 20 eagles at one time, And here I am in a suburb city type, and I was like, well, walking down the street and I was just kind of like struck by the color red. It was a stoplight.
No, it's so true that there's just a beauty and emanation from everything, because it's not longer just a flat stop sign. It's no longer, there's a beingness to it. There's an energy field to it, so to speak. Yeah, everything's that reflection, even the stop sign.
Like, what is
Yeah,
that red thing? I'm like, what's red even? It's just this,
right.
it's like seeing everything for the first time, the freshness and the
Mm.
again, this is just a story. People might think that they have to attain this. It's already is.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
already is.
yeah. Absolutely. It's just what we're calling mind and personal identity is just that commentary. Like you know what the hummingbird is, or you know what the stop sign is, or you know what this means. We actually don't know what anything means.
No.
So when the me dissolves, so does meaning. Yeah.
And it's almost like I was thinking about this, kind of like a deprogramming.
Mhm.
The me is
Yeah.
programmed. It's just almost like an unknowing, kind of like almost like an unraveling. But no one
Yeah.
is, when you unravel, there's no one.
Wow.
It's
It's like the yarn when you just go, like the little spool of yarn. It's just,
mhm.
there's nothing actually holding it together. It was just like wound by itself, so to speak, in a weird way, like a little spool. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. Yeah. There's already
Yeah.
nothing there. That's what I'm saying. There's nothing to integrate. Even what we're calling the person is already it. Yeah.
So people always ask these questions now, and I prepared 100 questions, but I don't
Yeah.
like reading them.
I get you.
Uh,
Yeah.
I just wanted to be spontaneous. Is what is impermanence?
Hmm. What is it? That would imply that there's permanence. What we're talking about doesn't have an opposite, in a sense. Opposites appear in it, you could say. Opposites appear, but there is no opposite to it. The me lives in the idea that there is actually an opposite. Like there's the divine and then ego, but there isn't. There's only divinity, you could say. Yeah. So permanence, impermanence. It's blended. It's one thing that's not a thing. Yeah. It appears. Sure.
What is this me that every speaker talks about? Where did this me come from?
Where did the me come from? Is that what you asked?
Yeah.
it, we labeled the me as a way of identity or free will, the experience of free will and choice, which is a dream. So, and we use this word dream like there's going to be a dream and then there's not. So that's where the words can be sticky, but there's already no one dreaming. You see, and there's already no one dreaming. So no one is doing the personing or the egoing or the seeking. It's all just what seems to be happening. But the dream of I am is I'm going to end this. It shouldn't be happening. It's just an experience. Being a me is an experience. And when that seems to be seen through, it doesn't mean you don't use the word me anymore or say I. And some beings stay in that realm where it's just they're like, oh, I mean, no, me, it's just weird. It's natural. So that's why there's no change. There's no A to B and there's no asleep to awake. But what seems to stop arising is just the added commentary of right and wrong, good and bad, and time. That's what falls away. But everything else stays the same, so to speak. Changing toilet paper rolls, interviews, laundry, all that arises, but for no one. Very simple.